Imagine you walk into a grocery store. The aisle is an explosion of colors, options, and competing brands. You see 40 different types of cereal, 30 varieties of shampoo, and 50 brands of bottled water. You stand there for 5 minutes, carefully comparing labels, reading ingredients, and making what you believe is an independent, free market choice. You feel empowered. You are a modern consumer, exercising your democratic right to vote with your wallet. Now, let me ruin your day. Every single item in your shopping cart, from your toothpaste to your dog food, was manufactured by the exact same handful of massive mega corporations. Welcome to the illusion of choice. We like to pretend we live in a free market economy driven by fierce competition. We are taught that if a company makes a bad product, a hungry competitor will come along, make a better version, and force the first company to innovate or go bankrupt. It is a beautiful story. It is taught in business schools. It sounds completely logical, and it is an absolute, mathematically verifiable lie. What you call a free market is actually an oligopoly disguised as a carnival. Let us break down the geometry of your local supermarket. You think you are looking at hundreds of independent companies fighting for your attention. In reality, 10 megacorporations control almost every single food and beverage brand in the entire world. Do you like Nestle? Or maybe you hate Nestle because of their terrible human rights record, so you decide to boycott them. You stop buying Nestle chocolate. Instead, you buy Gerber baby food, Perrier mineral water, Hot Pockets, Purina cat food, Nesquik, and L'Oreal shampoo. Congratulations, you just spent $200 on Nestle products while feeling morally superior. They do not care which of their 50 sub-brands you choose, as long as the money ends up in the same bank account in Switzerland. You see this exact same trick in every single industry. Walk into a fashion store. You see 50 different streetwear brands, luxury labels, and sporting goods. Luxottica owns virtually every major eyewear brand on the planet. Ray-Ban, Oakley, Persol, Oliver Peoples, plus the licensed eyewear for Chanel, Prada, Versace, and Burberry. If you buy glasses in America, you are paying a 2,000% markup to one company, whether you bought them at a cheap mall kiosk or a high-end boutique. The system was designed this way on purpose. True competition is dangerous for profits. Competition forces prices down. Competition requires expensive research and development. Competition causes stress for chief executive officers. Monopolies, on the other hand, are efficient, lazy, and extraordinarily lucrative. But pure, obvious monopolies are illegal, or at least they used to be before regulators went to sleep. So corporations created a genius workaround. They built the illusion of diversity. Instead of owning one brand that controls 90% of the market, which attracts government lawyers and antitrust lawsuits, you buy 50 smaller brands that pretend to hate each other. You create fake rivalries. Brand A targets eco-friendly moms. Brand B targets budget-conscious students. Brand C targets luxury shoppers. You run ad campaigns where Brand A suddenly mocks Brand B. The public picks sides. People argue in comment sections about which brand is superior. Meanwhile, back at corporate headquarters, the board of directors sits in a leather chair, drinking champagne, watching you fight over 2 bottles of water that came out of the exact same pipe in Michigan. This is not just about chips and soda. It is about the fundamental structure of your reality. Because once you zoom out from the grocery store aisle, you discover something even more absurd. Who owns the 10 corporations that own everything else? If you trace the stock ownership of PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer, you keep running into the exact same 2 names over and over again: BlackRock and Vanguard. These are not traditional companies that make things. They are institutional asset managers. They are giant financial vacuum cleaners that suck up capital from pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and private investors. Together, they manage tens of trillions of dollars in assets. That is more money than the entire economy of the United States and China combined. They own major ownership stakes in almost every publicly traded company on Earth. They are the largest shareholders in Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, ExxonMobil, and Bank of America. They own the company that makes the plane you fly on, the company that sells you the ticket, the company that provides the fuel, and the hotel you stay in when you land. You think you are choosing between Coke and Pepsi, but the largest shareholder in Coke is Vanguard and BlackRock, and the largest shareholder in Pepsi is Vanguard and BlackRock. When Coke wins, Vanguard makes money. When Pepsi wins, Vanguard makes money. The game was over before you even walked through the automatic sliding doors of the grocery store. To truly understand how we arrived at this point, we have to look back at how the rules of the game were rewritten. Once upon a time, governments actually cared about monopolies. 100 years ago, if a company got too big, politicians would pull out a giant sledgehammer and smash it into small pieces. They broke up Standard Oil. They broke up American Tobacco. The philosophy was simple. No single corporate entity should have more power than the democratic government elected by the people. Then came the 1980s, and a quiet revolution occurred in the realm of economic policy. A group of economists convinced lawmakers that big was no longer bad. As long as prices for consumers stayed low in the short term, mergers and acquisitions were perfectly fine. This single shift in logic opened the floodgates. It triggered the greatest corporate feeding frenzy in human history. For the past 40 years, big companies stopped inventing new products. Why spend millions of dollars on research and development when you can just wait for a small startup to do the hard work and then buy them out? If the startup refuses to sell, you use your massive balance sheet to undercut their prices, bankrupt them, and buy their assets for pennies on the dollar. It is the corporate equivalent of an apex predator absorbing smaller organisms to gain their powers. Look at what happened to the media landscape. In 1983, 90% of American media was controlled by 50 different companies. That meant 50 different editorial boards, 50 different perspectives, and 50 different investigative teams. By 2011, that entire landscape was crushed down into just 6 mega conglomerates: Comcast, Disney, News Corp, Warner Brothers Discovery, Paramount, and Sony. 6 boardrooms decide what news you read, what movies you watch, what music gets promoted on the radio, and what political narratives dominate your daily feed. You think you are surfing an endless ocean of independent journalism and entertainment. In reality, you are swimming in a private swimming pool where 6 lifeguards control the temperature, the depth, and the color of the water. And if you look at digital space, it is even more concentrated. 3 companies control the majority of cloud computing infrastructure that powers the entire internet. 2 companies control the mobile operating systems that run every smartphone on Earth. 1 company processes the vast majority of online search queries. We replace thousands of local businesses, independent publishers, and regional manufacturers with a digital feudal system. You do not own your digital life. You are just renting space on a server owned by an internet lord, paying tribute in the form of your personal data and subscription fees. The most dangerous aspect of this consolidation is not just that it takes your money, it is that it destroys your ability to imagine an alternative. When every product you buy, every piece of news you consume, and every song you listen to originates from the same small circle of boardrooms, public opinion becomes remarkably easy to engineer. You can create the illusion of a fierce national debate while keeping both sides of the argument safely inside parameters that never threaten corporate profit margins. Notice how politicians on television constantly argue about culture wars, flag designs, and Twitter drama. But notice what they almost never debate. They never debate breaking up the banks. They never debate auditing the defense contractors. They never debate capping the profits of pharmaceutical monopolies. Why? Because the political campaigns of both parties are funded by the exact same megacorporations, whose largest shareholders are Vanguard and BlackRock. You get to vote for political candidates every 4 years, but the corporate entities that fund those candidates vote every single day with billions of dollars in lobbying power. Your vote changes the face on the television screen. Their money writes the tax codes and environmental regulations. It is a closed-loop system. The illusion of political choice mirrors the illusion of consumer choice in the grocery aisle. You stand in front of 2 political options, just like you stand in front of 2 brands of potato chips. The packaging is different. The slogans are different. The mascot on the front has a different color. But inside the bag, it is the exact same salty fried cardboard manufactured by the same parent corporation. So how do we break the spell? What is the antidote to a world where your choices are manufactured by a boardroom of 10 people you will never meet? The first step is simply waking up to the absurdity of the performance. Stop taking corporate marketing campaigns seriously. Stop having passionate arguments on the internet about whether brand A is superior to brand B. Realize that when you participate in internet brand loyalty, you are essentially volunteering to be a free marketing intern for a monopoly. You are defending a holding company that would replace your job with an algorithm tomorrow morning if it saved them 3 cents on a quarter. Look for local alternatives. Support independent makers, regional farms, local hardware stores, and small businesses that do not answer to a faceless asset manager in New York. Yes, it might cost a little more. Yes, it might require a little more effort than clicking a button for next-day delivery. But every dollar you spend outside the mega corporate ecosystem is a tiny vote for actual human diversity. We have to relearn the value of friction. The corporate consolidation machine relies entirely on your laziness and your addiction to immediate convenience. They want you isolated, exhausted, and dependent on their infrastructure for every basic necessity of life. When you start growing your own food, fixing your own things, talking to your actual neighbors, and building real local connections, the illusion starts to fracture. You realize that you do not need 90% of the garbage they sell you. The illusion of choice only works as long as you keep playing the game by their rules. The next time you walk down a supermarket aisle and look at 40 different brands of cereal, do not fall for the branding. Do not look at the colorful cartoon mascot. Look past the cardboard box and see the invisible hand of the mega monopoly holding all the strings. You are not a consumer living in a free market. You are a player inside a rigged board game where the house owns every single hotel on the map. Recognizing that you are being played is not pessimistic. It is the only way to regain your freedom. Because once you see through the matrix, the magic tricks stop working. Put down the corporate product. Walk away from the manufactured rivalry. Support the small, the local, and the independent. Because in a world where 10 people own everything you buy, choosing to build your own path is the ultimate act of defiance.